window
Yeah.
was open for obviously the first couple of days before the Club World Cup, I think, which starts next week. I think in like 5 days time, I think.
Yeah, a few days time, yeah.
Something like that. So there was a lot. Obviously, there's business from a lot of teams. Obviously, Arsenal didn't concrete sign anyone. Obviously, we agreed the deals for Kepa. We know the Zubimendi deal's kind of been agreed for a long time. We know the bit of the scare that we'll get into. But obviously, the main focus and obviously main talk has obviously always been the striker. Obviously, Steph, me and you have made countless videos talking about the need for a striker. And obviously, we've been seeing numerous links, obviously, coming from many journalists in ITKs, whatever, about obviously Arsenal in talks with Sesko. And, advancing. This week was meant to be, a critical week. Obviously, I haven't really seen anything, like any update, any relevant update or anything that seems like a deal has been agreed. We know, well, I don't know if you saw that Saudi were in for him, or Saudi, apparently, two Saudi clubs apparently in for him.
Saudi clubs, yep.
Apparently, though, I was kind of convinced that that's a bit of a smoke screen. I don't know what you thought. So, like, just in general, like, I just want to get your take on, just obviously I know what you feel about Sesko, but like, just the deal, like, if you feel like that's the right one, is that's the striker that you want, and also, like, do you feel like this is one that you feel Arsenal will wrap up quickly, or do you think it's going to be one of those, classical like Arsenal transfers that drag on?
Well, that's interesting you ask that, because I feel like the transfer window for a lot of clubs, other than a select few, especially in the Premier League, haven't really done much business, especially Arsenal. Haven't really confirmed anyone, but we could say Zubimendi is all but done. Fabrizio Romano has also came back and confirmed that. So we could say we got our business done early, technically. But I mean, I don't think this deal was gonna get done quickly, especially with Leipzig looking to push up the price by all these reports that I'm hearing. You also hear about they want the full release clause paid in full, and then compared to what we heard before in terms of paying a little bit over the release clause and maybe doing installments. I think that was with Zubimendi as well, but I think this might also be the case for the Sesko deal. So there's been a lot of news going around, even with the Gyokeres side of everything. People talking about Gyokeres as our fallback plan. You see Gyokeres falling out with the sporting president, and that could be kind of a fallout there in terms of price. So I think the striker situation for Arsenal seems to be a lot about negotiating and getting the right deal that suits the club in terms of financially and player wise. I think ultimately, if you were to ask me, no financial aspects involved, picking between the two players, I'm probably going to lean Sesko, just because individually, and watching the James Elcott video we talked about off camera, he has that ability to drop deep and pick the pass in comparison to Kai Havertz, who kind of drop deep, play the safe option. He is someone that I know has the technical, tangible abilities to do things that we need in the final third, especially when you add another player potentially on the left wing, maybe a Nico Williams, maybe a Rodrigo in tandem with Saka. Having that presence as a box presence at 6'5", speed to score goals as well. I'm leaning definitely towards Sesko, especially at 21, 22 years old, scoring. He could be a 20. He's already a 20 goal a season striker, and going to move into a better team with better players. Hopefully, picks up the system and picks up the tactics and picks up camaraderie with the teammates well and early. That will help. That will only go to help us. And I think, other than that, we're looking at probably a future of one of Europe's top strikers. So I'd go Sesko. I thought about it.
Yeah, I definitely reiterate that last part. Like, I definitely feel like whether it's next season, whether it's the season after, or in a couple of years' time, he definitely will be one of, if not the best, like strikers in the world. If he, elevates his game and sharpens his tools, which I definitely believe Mikel Arteta, who's a very underrated,
Manager,
attacking players as well. I think he really, like, I think when I'm watching I don't know if you watched the All or Nothing documentary that was on Amazon that time a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just remember that there was one thing he was telling Saka about when you receive the ball, how to help yourself, finish. And I was like, obviously Mikel Arteta is a midfielder, a deep midfielder, but he's an intelligent man. Like, obviously to get back onto the deal, like,
he's been around. He's been
been
around the
around
block
guys.
too.
You can clearly see he thinks the game, innit? And with Sesko, I feel like, yeah, that given, obviously, I'll just say it, like, Isak would have definitely been my number one choice if he was available and attainable. And I'm not saying that any player is not attainable, but just like how I would classify Saka as unattainable, even if any team wants to come in and try, get him, I'm pretty sure Newcastle will feel the same about their number 14. That now, obviously, them trying to be on the up, having a good end to the season, being in the Champions League, they're trying to establish themselves as a constant European team, maybe a title challenger. They're not going to let that go for a cheap price unless he pushes for a move. I don't think it's happening. So Sesko to me is the next best option.
My question to you, KB, before you transition too far off, I think we both are in agreement that we like Sesko. There are a lot of people out there that like Gyökeres over Sesko. What would you say to those people that, let's just say we don't get Sesko in the ultimate hub? How would you feel about Gyökeres being the main man? Let's just say it wasn't in Arsenal's hand. Let's just say Gyökeres is the main guy. What do you think about that deal?
I think at the end of the day, like even if Gyokeres isn't like my first choice, I think he's still a good player, he's still a good striker, a very good goal scorer. Like, and who knows, also him being put in a team that's with better players in a better league, like better expectations, how he might blossom as well. So I think as long as Arsenal do get one of the strikers that are at the top of the list or top of like the demands, like I'm unfazed. Like I just don't want Arsenal to not get a player or like, do you know what I mean, try and run back what we've done or do something silly, which I don't expect us to do. But end of the day, this club has done many of those things. But to go back to the Sesko thing, I think the deal will probably drag. Any deal drags. I think, like as I was saying, I think Leipzig are trying to, like, I think the whole Saudi thing, like apparently Sesko hadn't even really spoken to Saudi. Obviously, there's going to be many teams interested in a player. Doesn't mean that they're actually talking to the player or trying to make a deal or advancing with a deal, but they you know, they show their hand. And obviously seen today with, you know, news coming out from like Portugal, apparently Arsenal spoke to Gyokeres and he made a bid and stuff, which I don't believe either. I'm not saying Arsenal asked to Gyokeres. I just don't believe. I don't believe they met, and I don't believe that they made a bid. But I think that's probably Arsenal pulling their hand and putting pressure back onto Leipzig, because I think Leipzig have to sell. As I said, I think I said this in my video. I said Leipzig had a bad season to their standard. They're not in the Champions League. I think they might have made Europa if I'm correct, but if they're not in the Champions League, they need to rebuild. Obviously, Sesko is probably their most valuable item, so I understand why they're trying to hold out for like a great price, similar to like the Sporting and the Gyökeres situation, where they're like, apparently they didn't have a gentleman's agreement with the release clause. Apparently Sesko was told when he signed a deal last year that he was going to be able to leave for a certain price, and it obviously would have been
now
easy
they're
for a
changing
deal to happen.
well.
And you know what I mean? So Arsenal know that they're in the driving seat, which is why I was saying, like, it's hard for me to say this because we haven't seen the proof, but I feel like I just know and I sense that things are different with Berta at the Rome, different to what Edu is. Like, I think the guy has a different level of gravitas, a different level of, like, do you know what I mean, just way of doing business, different. Just he has a different level of aura. I don't want to be glazing pause, but like he seems like he knows what he's doing. Like Arsenal will get a deal for Sesko done, and it will get done for a good price. I just hope that it's just at a good enough time that before preseason started, so we can get these players in early, as we've both discussed in it. And at the end of the day, he's a great player, man. Like, I think, of course, he's young, so he's gonna have a lot of things he needs to improve in. But I think just that natural ball striking, that height, as you said, his pace, his technical ability, first touch. It's funny, but I think Havertz probably does have probably a bit better link up play in terms of just overall ball playing, like, because he's been a midfielder, he's an older player, but I think Sesko has, as you said, the raw like attributes and athleticism that just makes him.
I think
crazy.
Like we've been talking about. I was talking to Ja about this off camera. I think football is now starting to go into a blend of what we've seen over the last 2 decades in terms of systematic football mixed with individual players that could win you games, and that is going to be the case now where football is going to transition. So we saw Barca, we saw PSG this season. Hopefully Arsenal can see that level, and Mikel Arteta has, in his history, has shown from season to season he can change the style of play to adapt to get us closer to win. So I'm not really worried about that. I just hope he identifies and picks the right choice next season when it comes. But I think when you add a player like Sesko, bro, I can't see how we don't raise our level in terms of just goal scoring alone, in terms of just presence and quality alone in the final third. No, especially when you have a player that's going to take risks, take the ball on the half turn, especially in those central areas, a player bounce pass and move off, and work the channel, run the channel with speed. I think all of this.
And he wants to shoot, and he wants to shoot outside the box. So and he has great ability to shoot as well. So it's like we're not going to be saying, oh, like shoot, or you're in a position. Like, he's willing to. He will probably be telling him to pass instead of shoot in time, because he's probably willing to shoot a lot more. Like, I think it's. I think we know Mikel's choice is Sesko, because from when we were trying to get him last year, it's been a name that's been mentioned for a couple of years now. And now that we're really pushing for him, probably similar to Zubimendi, probably last year kind of gave their word that we'll be in for them. We'll wait. We won't sign anyone in the position. Not saying that's the reason why we didn't get anyone in January, but probably was, a situations. And hopefully this deal does get wrapped up, and obviously we'll talk a bit more, deeply about Sesko. But